Chomp.
Hi everybody and welcome back to UR Supreme Toys. Today we're going to be looking at the new Toxic Crusaders Ultimates from Super7. Either Radiation Ranger or Junkyard. Who's to know? They didn't put the nameplate down here in the bottom like they should have, so I don't know who this is. As mentioned before, you will notice that the shipper boxes are missing. Not quite sure why they do not have shipper boxes for this wave of figures, but I do not miss them, and I'm sure most people will not either. This first wave of figures really is great for me because it had two of the figures I had as a kid. We only got 4 Toxic Crusader figures new when we were little. I got the Radiation Ranger and Junkyard, which are both represented in this wave. So if for some reason they decide to discontinue the Toxic Crusaders Ultimates line, I'm set. I got what I need from this series. But I will continue to buy whatever they release. My brother, on the other hand, got Psycho and Bonehead, which really fits his personality. Yeah, brother jokes. Anyway, I'm really excited for whichever one this is. So let's go ahead and pop him out of this cellophane. And this slipcase is gorgeous. My only issue with slipcases is what do you do with the top of the case once you slip it out? Because I don't think most people are going to display them with this top on if they're keeping them in the package. I really wish they would just get rid of the slipcases. But apparently people like them. They're great for reviews because it's like, ooh, special reveal. But this package looks great. I love the colors. I love the whole toxic cloud effect they got going on here. There's nothing on the back. So who's this going to be? Radiation Ranger or Junkyard? Let's do a slip reveal. Oh boy. Woo! It's Junkyard. Junkyard was my favorite. Him and the Radiation Ranger were great. I played with these guys so much. And wow. Ugh. This is this is a gorgeous action figure. Oh wow. I really hope so much that there are no quality control issues with this guy, because it would break my heart. Wow. I am off the bat just I'm in love. I'm in love with this guy. He's so great. I'm going to try not to be too biased in reviewing him, because we don't know what's going to happen. But wow, first impressions. Whoa. Again, I feel like the nameplate should have been here on the bottom so that you could tell who it was before you pulled the slipcase off. Love the whole warning tape look. And I do love the hazmat diamond sticker on the back. It's not a sticker, but that's what a hazmat diamond sticker looks like. It says, "Warning, this package contains Junkyard, the trashed out hideous hound." Okay, I don't think that's a warning. This guy was a guy, but now he's a guy and a dog combined in one. And that can't be too bad of a thing, right? Alright. I can't just keep this guy locked up in this box. I've got to get him out. So let's go ahead and pop Junkyard out so that I can experience childhood again. Okay. We got a lot to unpack here. It's been a while since I looked at the promotional images for these figures, so I kind of forgot what they looked like. And well, I'm speechless on this guy. This was easily one of my top 10 action figures growing up, from everything Ninja Turtles, He-Man. It didn't matter. I played with this guy all the time. I don't know what it was about him. I don't know if it was just the colors or the concept or what, but he was just amazing to me as a kid, and he still looks freaking awesome. The sculpt on him is fantastic. Look at the hair, the face, the teeth, the lips, the eyes. Everything is just sculpted so good. Wow, he just looks great. There are some minor issues with the paint. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little weird little smudging right there on the brim of his hat where it looks like it grabbed. His hat is a softer rubber. I don't know why they did that. That might have to do with why that paint looks like that. I'm not going to try to mess with it and make it worse. But it looks like a piece of dust got stuck in the paint. You know, like if you're painting something and a little piece of dust gets stuck in it. He has this green paint splashed all over his arms and feet. That wasn't on the vintage figure. So I'm not sure where they got that from. This guy is definitely not animated inspired. I feel like some of the sculpting is weak, especially when you get to the clothing. This guy is a mutant dog, and his clothes are a little bit too clean looking, despite being ripped. I feel like the sculpting is a little bit soft on the shirt and the pants. That being said, the arms and the legs look great. This guy, it's weird because he's not exactly like the toy, but he's not exactly like the cartoon. It's like they did their own thing and sort of like combined the best of both worlds into one figure. And I don't know, it really works. It really works. It looks good. He's got his little collar on his wrist painted. The spikes are painted silver. It looks good. All his little claws on his hands are painted black. There's a little bit of paint spillover on the chain on his right wrist, but it's not too bad. The collar around his neck is a soft rubber plastic with his dog tags. Keep that in mind because, as I mentioned with the bandolier on Toxie, the paint on these softer parts tend to crack. Be mindful of that when swapping heads around or posing him. But other than that, it fits just right over the neck. His eyes, there's a little bit of white spillover on the rim of the eye at the bottom. That's not too bad. That could have been fixed by putting a little bit of wash in there or something. He's got this little splat mark on his brim of his hat. His back shirt is ripped where his spines are poking through. He's got a little bit of a scuff right there on one of the spines. Don't really like that, but what are you going to do? They were kind of stuck with what to do with that knee hinge because, you know, the front of his pants is ripped, but the back isn't, so it's going to be a little bit off color on the back of it. Wow, I just can't stop gushing over this guy. I love him. The last time I felt like this was probably when I unboxed Super7's Muckman and Joe Eyeball. This guy's just the tops. This guy's just wow. And I love that they did the green paint fleck. It really gives it that vintage toy feel, even though I don't recall the toy having that on it. Let's go ahead and look at articulation. First thing you'd want to do is pose this jaw. However, this jaw is not hinged. He has a neck bobble, and that's it. As mentioned, be careful when posing the head that you don't scrape this collar too much or you will knock the paint loose. But there's not a lot of motion, but you know, he can look up and down about so, and his head can wiggle side to side a little bit. He can turn his head to the side like that. Looks great. He has his shoulder hinge and swivel, and that's pretty good. It goes up high enough, I think. Not too bad. He has the bicep swivel, and then a bicep cut. It does not go a 90, but I don't think a 90 is necessary with this character. And then of course he has swivel and hinged wrists. The colors on him are fantastic. It's a great color choice. Like, all the colors are like just the right color. I am not too thrilled with this waist cut. There's only a waist swivel. There's no ab crunch or bobble. So that's a little disappointing, but at the same time, his design really kind of doesn't call for that. Although I feel like they could have blended a bobble right here with this cut. That cut's probably the worst part of this figure so far. It's just very obvious, and it just looks like they glued the top of the figure to the waist. He has bald hips, which go up pretty good. This is sort of a softer diaper around the articulation of the leg. And I feel like for once they got it right. It's the perfect softness, so it doesn't hinder the movement of the thigh. So you can bobble, twist, and hinge his hips very well. That being said, his hips are a tad loose. They're not as tight as, say, Toxie's were. And then, of course, he has this knee hinge, which does its job. I feel like this is the most his knees need to bend. I like that the legs aren't completely straight. And, of course, he has these beautiful dog-like feet that go that far. They hinge that far and that far back. This is a softer heel. And then, of course, he's got the rocker ankles. So his articulation is really good. He also has a boot cut, a foot twist. I didn't notice that. So his feet can bend too. This guy's really good. And there's a swivel at the knee. So there's a swivel and a boot twist at the knee, even though he doesn't have boots. I'm sure he did before his feet changed. And this guy's just, wow. This guy's just great. And I forgot one more piece of articulation. His tail is hinged and swiveled, which is perfect. I love that. He's lost the fur and the meat on his tail, so all you see is the bone. And then he's got a little braid on the back, a band-aid on his upper tail. I don't know how he got the band-aid on there. Gosh, this guy's wonderful. Accessories. These accessories are vintage toy accessories. Like, first off, his alternate head is amazing. Look at this alternate head. Wow. Look at this alternate head. Again, the brim is a softer rubber on the hat. This is probably the head I'm going to be using. The vintage toy had a hinged jaw, so his jaw could move up and down. And he had this very long rubbery tongue. I'm glad that they kept the tongue a soft rubber. It's not perfectly painted. I feel like it could have used a little bit more detail in it, but it does the job. Again, be careful when playing with it, as you are likely to stress and crack the paint over time, especially as it ages. But this head looks wonderful. He has a belt. This is actually going to hide that line in his waist. I didn't think about that till now, because this chain is sculpted out. I guess you could use this as a flail weapon or as a belt. He has this little flea character sculpted in with a knife and fork on the front of the belt, which is just like the vintage toy. And of course he has this little spiked flail end on it. He could swing it around from his hand, or can attach it to his waist. That makes up for that gap in the waist. That being said, it's not quite long enough. The belt's not quite long enough. You have to stretch it a little bit to get it to plug in, which doesn't bode well for the longevity and the elasticity of this belt. Hopefully I can get it without much problem. Yeah, that's a bummer. It just doesn't fit. The belt just doesn't fit. I can get it on there, but as you can see, the peg doesn't peg in quite all the way. So I don't know what happened here. They kind of dropped the ball in design, but it fits snug because that chain sort of fits in that waist swivel. That being said, once the belt's on there, you can still move his waist. Keep in mind that this is soft rubber, and it's going to take some effort to get that peg in there. Once you get in there, it'll be fine. However, over time, it might stretch that peg out. He looks so much better now. That looks so much better. I did not think about that belt when I was complaining about that waist. So that problem is solved because I'm not taking the belt off. He has this gun. I love this gun. He should have came with two versions of this gun. He should have came with this version, which is dead on inspired by the vintage toy in colors and design. And then he should have had one that was painted. He really needed to have one painted because this is a Playmates design weapon. So there are a lot of different details in it. For instance, it's a bone handle. That should have been bone. It's a tin can dog food can on the top. that's been cut open, that's full of dog food. That should have been painted like dog food in a can. He's got a collar on it, multiple collars. He has a flea clip magazine, so that should have been painted something different. There is literally a small animal on the sight of this gun. What is that? Some kind of bug. Like, that should have been painted. This is obviously made of wood with a beware of dog sign on it. That should have been painted. There are so many different parts on this gun, and I would have much appreciated 2 different variations of this gun, one painted and one toy colors. And then he has his bone flag, take a bite out of grime. He's got his 2 bones with the flag on it. The vintage piece, this would have been a sticker over the bones. This looks good. Again, probably could have used 2 versions, one where the bones were painted. I'm happy with the accessories we have. I just would have liked to have seen more detailed versions. Then, of course, he's got this dog bone. I love this dog bone. It's spiked, and it looks great. It's just like the vintage dog bone. And then he has his rolled up newspaper nail bat. This was supposed to be a rolled up newspaper with a collar wrapped around it and a nail sticking through the end. It says Toxic Times. This is glow in the dark plastic. This was the glow in the dark accessory that came with the vintage toy. It would have been in the little green envelope that came inside the package. And then he has 4 extra hands. He has 2 mauling claw hands, which look fantastic. And then he has 2 closed fists, which are good. Let's see how his accessories work. His belt worked pretty good. Whoop. Collar flies off, so you can have him sans collar if you want. We're going to keep the collar on. As you can see, he's got a double neck peg, which is good. That helps with articulation on the head, even though it's still hindered from the collar. I'm going to put on this head, see how it fits. Oh. Goes on there pretty good. Give him his dog bone gun. And then his spiked newspaper. And he's set for action. Wow. I gotta say, this is nostalgia overload. It's been over 30 years since we've gotten a Junkyard action figure, and he looks great. I did notice a couple things. You can see on the side of his head there are prevalent mold lines, but other than that, it's not that big of a deal. There are a few things he could have used an extra touch on, as far as paint apps maybe. Maybe a little bit more wash here and there. That being said, this is a nice blend of the animated and the action figure version. I have my vintage action figure version still. He is in rough shape. Unfortunately, my Toxic Crusaders wound up in a storage container when I was a teenager that filled with water and grime while in storage, so they are in rough shape, and his tongue has fallen out. I don't know where it is. I loved this action feature. I would have liked to have seen them implement that in some way. As you can see, the dog tag is orange on the vintage one. The suspender clips are orange on the vintage one. The belt is like dead on, except I would say the flea on the vintage one looks 10 times better than the one on the new version. I don't see why the new one's so small. That vintage one looks amazing. Also, the gun is bigger and way more detailed on the vintage one. That's weird. This is an instance where the accessories on the vintage outshine the accessories on the modern. As you can see, he does not have that green speckle paint on his arms or legs. The vintage one did not have the shirt sleeves painted, and they're rolled up really weird. I always thought this was like some weird flesh on his shoulders, but I now realize as an adult that those are his sleeves rolled up. They're not painted on there. They would have been brown. The paint deco on the vintage figure is actually pretty good. There are some lumps missing on the sculpt of the new one that are prevalent on the vintage one, like on the upper arm and the forearms. I would say that the detail on the vintage one is, even more detailed. Those band-aids are way better sculpted. This is like a nice mix between the animated and the action figure versions, because the sculpting on the vintage one is like really good. Even to today's standards, this sculpt is fantastic. And this is just sculpt light. I feel like there's just details that aren't there. His back on the vintage one was not painted, the spikes or the hair, which is always interesting. But yeah, this is my original one. His sticker, Take the Bite Out of Grime, has water damage. I have misplaced his bone and his newspaper, and I played with him so much, I'm surprised he wound up in storage at all. But it's not the end of the world, because I have him mint on card, and he is beautiful. This guy is gorgeous. As you can see, this is the pouch that his little newspaper would have came in. And this guy just looks amazing. One of my all-time favorite action figures ever. Ever. From any toy line ever. I love this figure. I'm glad I bought these figures mint on card when they were worthless, because you cannot get anything Playmates really mint on card anymore for a reasonable price. I'm so happy and thrilled with this figure. I'm glad to see that Super7 hasn't completely lost their touch. We've been real hit and miss here a lot lately, Super7. A lot. And you guys have pulled it out of the park, 2 for 2 in this wave of figures. He's a garbage man turned into a dog. Come on. He looks awesome. I love him. I love him. Super7, Super7. There are a few things I wish you guys would have did better, but he's just phenomenal. If you look at him on the shelf, you'd swear he was dead on ringer for what you had as a kid. And I love him. I love him. I love him. You love me? Yes, Junkyard, I love you. I love you too, buddy. Woo! Nerds. Anywho, this has been an unboxing and review of Toxic Crusaders Ultimates Junkyard from Super7, and I am UR Supreme Toys. Thank you so much for watching.